Greece and Turkey have been embroiled in a long-standing dispute over maritime borders. Tensions have escalated since summer 2020, when Turkey actively embarked on searching for oil and gas in maritime zones, not yet delimited between the two states. Successive military exercises in the Mediterranean and the Aegean Seas have contributed to sustaining the tension in the region. Dialogue between the two states has not led to a positive outcome yet. Relations with Turkey were historically considered in Israel as a much more important strategic asset than relations with Greece. This was reversed during the last decade. The major crisis in Israel-Turkey relations did not begin with the coming to power of Erdogan in the early 2000s, but only in late 2008 due to an Israeli operation in Gaza. The crisis with Turkey and the instability in the Middle East following the Arab Spring have led Israel to seek new alliances in southeastern Europe, including with Greece and Cyprus. The discovery of natural gas turned the Eastern Mediterranean into a sub-region of major importance for Israel's foreign policy and advanced the Israel-Greece-Cyprus alliance. Israel took a leading part in the formation of the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum as part of its efforts to develop meaningful bilateral and multilateral alliances in the Eastern Mediterranean.
Shalom Nimrod.
Shalom Judith.
For many years, Israel has made an effort not to take sides in the Greek-Turkish conflict. However, until about 2 decades ago, Israel maintained a close relationship with Turkey, while having rather cool relations with Greece. Can you tell us a little bit about the historic background and rationale of Israeli foreign policy until the early 2000s?
So Turkey is important for Israel for different reasons, including security, strategic, economic, also a gateway to the Muslim world. And this relationship lasts for a long time, much before the countries were established. Back in 1492, the Ottoman Empire opened its doors for Jews fleeing the Inquisition. Then during World War II, Turkey invited Jews escaping from Nazi Germany. So these issues led to a relationship when Israel was founded, leading Turkey to be the first Muslim country to recognize Israel. And the countries maintained consecutive diplomatic relations from 1949 until today, despite numerous ups and downs, relationship that was built mostly on security affairs and with a lot of secret relations not always in the open. The exception was in the 1990s after the Oslo peace process and the Israeli-Palestinian negotiations. This opened the door for a decade of much warmer relations between Israel and Turkey that had a more public civilian aspect to that. During the course of these years, these decades, Israel did not have a very good relation with Greece. Relations were cooler. Greece was more on the Arab side, more on the Palestinian side. It saw Turkey, Israel as part of the Turkish camp. So while the countries did have their diplomatic ties, it didn't lead up to the same degree of warmness that Turkey and Israel enjoyed in the 1990s.
In 2003, Recep Tayyip Erdogan was elected to the position of Turkish Prime Minister in Turkey. Was this a turning point in the relationship between Israel and Turkey? And how did that affect the relationship between Israel and Greece?
Mm-hmm. So the crisis between Israel and Turkey did not begin when Erdogan took power. The first few years of Erdogan in power did see some tensions between Israel and Turkey, more closeness between Turkey and the Palestinians, but overall the high-level relationship continued. Erdogan even came to Jerusalem in 2005 after the Israeli disengagement from Gaza. He visited Yad Vashem. Later, Turkey invited President Abbas and President Peres to speak to the Turkish parliament. The problem started when the Gaza war broke out in 2008, late 2008. Gaza, Jerusalem, the Palestinian issue was always a determinant factor in Turkey-Israel relations. And whenever there was such a crisis, the relations suffered. You remember perhaps the incident in Davos, 2009, with Erdogan leaving the stage when Shimon Peres on it. Later on, the flotilla in 2010. These crises in the relationships, plus the regional instability because of the Arab Spring, led Israel to seek other allies in the region, looking to southeastern Europe. And within that framework, within that foreign policy approach, Israel looked for Greece and Cyprus and started developing a relationship with them.
The discovery of gas resources by Israel, Turkey and Cyprus shuffled the cards and led to a new positioning of Israel not only vis-à-vis Turkey and Greece, but also vis-à-vis the whole region. Can you describe Israel's relationship with Greece and Cyprus and the East Mediterranean Gas Forum? Do the Turkish interests in the gas fields around Cyprus and the related conflict between Turkey and Cyprus affect Israel? And if yes, how?
So the gas discoveries in the Eastern Mediterranean did make this sub-region a very important one for Israel's foreign policy. And within that context, Israel developed its relation with Greece and Cyprus further. The countries consolidated their relationship. There were multiple summits between the leaders and between ministries, and cooperation developed. And the countries also led the establishment, together with Egypt, of the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum, also including the Palestinians and European and Arab states. This was intended to maximize economic gains from these gas discoveries. Israel emphasized that this alliance is not geared towards any third country, including Turkey. When Israel established better relations with Turkey in 2016, it did manage to balance between its ongoing relationship with Greece and Cyprus and the improvement of ties in Turkey. So Israel is emphasizing a win-win diplomatic approach in the East Med, not siding with one side over the other. In the last year or so, it did emphasize several times that it stands with Cyprus in its conflict with Turkey, but was cautious in doing so and did not go too far in its statements in that conflict. It tries to prefer to be neutral in the conflict of Turkey, Greece and Cyprus.
So this has been quite an interesting development, but did this influence in any way the public opinion in Israel? How do Israelis relate to this issue and to the conflict?
So this conflict between Turkey, Greece and Cyprus is not a burning issue on the public debate in Israel. At Mitvim, we surveyed the public on that. We asked what does the public think Israel should do vis-à-vis that conflict. And most of the public that has positive attitudes towards Cyprus and Greece and cherishes the warm relationship, that some of it still have memories from previous visits to Turkey when tourism was at peak, the public wants Israel to remain neutral. More than 40%, that's what they want. If they force Israel to take a side, it will mostly be with Greece and Cyprus over Turkey, but not a whole lot of that. So the public wants Israel to keep out. In the political field, you see it playing out in the same way. There is no real chance of a change of policy, whether one government or another will be formed, but there is also an acceptance of a strategic relationship with Turkey that necessitates at least to have ambassadors in place, even if good relations that were in the 90s could not be repeated.
So it seems that Israel, both on the political as well as on the civilian level, is increasingly seeing itself as part of the Mediterranean region. Can Israel become a mediator in the conflict between Greece and Turkey? Would such a role be in the best interest of Israel? And how could Israel contribute to the ending of the current imbroglio?
So the Eastern Med becomes a new space for regional belonging for Israel, and we see it in public opinion surveys and in official policies. It's a region that combines Europe and the Middle East and gives an answer to many identity questions that Israel is facing when it asks itself where does it belong. There's a whole lot of opportunities opening up for Israel, especially after the Abraham Accords and normalization relations. The Gulf comes into the East Med. Morocco is now having good relations with Israel, and it is a Mediterranean country. There are economic benefits, so Israel has much lot to gain. But to fulfill the potential of that region, it needs to be a region without many conflicts. So first and foremost, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict jeopardizes chances to fulfill the potential of the region. Israel needs to strive for a two-state solution, to resolve the conflict, to bring more stability. But also conflicts of others are of jeopardy to the region, whether it's between Turkey, Greece and Cyprus, or Turkey and Egypt. And Israel, as a country that has relations with almost all the actors in the region, should play a role in trying to mitigate those conflicts and bring greater stability to the region. Not only by helping others, but also in trying to resolve its conflicts, even with Lebanon. There is now negotiations going on. So making regional institutions like the East Med Gas Forum more inclusive, to perhaps include Turkey, to perhaps include Lebanon, could be something of benefit to Israel's interest, although it's quite a challenge now. And to see countries like the US and EU member states seeing the importance of the East Med and becoming more involved there, I think it's a good sign for Israel as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judith.